since 2009. In 2018, the university came to me asking for me to start an MFT master's degree. So we have started the master's degree in 2020 in the fall. So right as COVID was hitting, we started our program. So we are now, I believe, 5 cohorts in to the program. I also have a private practice that I work in, where I work with couples that are in high distress on the verge of separation and divorce. I have some special guests with us today that I'm going to start with Dr. Kaufman, who's our other core MFT faculty member. And then we'll go to our other guests, which is one of our current students, Brooke Bryan.
Hey, good afternoon to everybody. We're very excited to see so many people here, and I can see in the chat people from all over. Shout out to a local Zephyr Hills person. That's where I live now. I've been at USF since 2021. I came from the University of Florida. Started out as a research position as a postdoc. So I'm integrated into still doing research, but I've moved into a clinical position at USF. I'm actually the field placement coordinator. So I help to organize your field placement, where you'll actually do your clinical practicums at. Really excited to do that position. It's a really good fit for me. I'm still in clinical practice. I have a group practice located in Claremont, Florida, right in Central Florida, where I'm from. Have about 12 clinicians there. Be opening a new site over in the Wesley Chapel area, hopefully at the beginning of the year. So we're just very excited to be here and have everybody here with us.
Yeah, hey y'all. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm Brooke Bryan. I'm originally from the Tampa Bay area. I moved away for my undergrad degree, which is in psychology at Auburn University in Alabama. So War Eagle to that. And I am now a second-year student here in the MFT program at USF.
And
I believe
Riley, Riley on the call?
Oh, yes. Hey everyone, I'm Riley. I graduated from the USF MFT program as part of the first cohort in 2022. Is that right, Dr. Henry? 2020, I can't even remember now. Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, that's it.
From there, I worked in private practice as a student intern, and then I, as a registered intern, went to the VA and worked there for a little bit. And then now I'm back in private practice at St. Petersburg Counseling. And I also use EFT. It's kind of like my little niche that I do here with couples, individuals, and families. And
I think your claim to fame, right, is that you were the first licensed therapist from our program. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we got some all-stars here with us on this call. I thought it would be helpful for you to have some current students and past students to just give their perspectives as we kind of go through the material. All right, Greg, why don't you go ahead and go to the next slide? So we're going to cover a lot of things today on the agenda. I'm not going to go through all those, but we'll try to hit on all these and also make sure we leave time for your questions and answers at the end of this presentation. I thought it'd be helpful to just kind of zoom out a little bit out of our program and just to the field of marriage and family therapy. I know some of you are in the process of trying to decide, is MFT the right profession to go into? And we know you have choices. There's mental health, there's social work, there's psychology, and they all have their kind of specialties or special niches. And so I just want to take a minute to talk about what MFT, what their special niche is, and why it might be a good fit for you. So basically, MFTs are therapists who do work with individuals, couples, and families, but they do it from a systemic lens. And what I mean by that is that they really take into account the influences that the relationships in somebody's life has on them and how they are impacting their relationships. it also takes into account not only what's going on internally for the individual, but also what's happening externally from them and how those relationships may be playing into what's going on. So if you kind of are someone who thinks about life through the lens of like relationships and the significance of relationships, and you can see how everything is linked, and that when you make a move, it ripples and has an impact on others, and when others make moves, it has an impact on you. If that's kind of how you see the world, then this is a great fit in terms of a way to approach therapy. As you can see, there's a lot of the same diagnoses, same problems that an individual therapist would be able to work with, but there's also the relational presenting issues that you're going to be prepared and ready to work with. I thought, Riley, since you've been out in the workforce, in the profession, you've interacted with other professionals in the field of mental health. I just wonder what your experience has been in terms of what you bring that's unique to settings that you've worked in as an MFT.
Yeah, what I think a major difference that I've noticed as a systemic therapist is that, let's say theoretically, even if when you're working with individuals, like you're definitely for sure equipped to work with couples and families, but let's say even with individuals, and your question is like, oh, I still want to work with individuals, like, is this program right for me? I would say 100% yes, because, and I would even argue, and I know this might be biased, but it's even better to do MFT, because when you're, let's say someone comes in with depression, they think linearly, like, you know, A equals B, and they're just focusing on like the depression. But from a systemic lens, you're saying like this depression doesn't just come, you know, from nowhere. It's coming from some distress, relationship dynamic or trauma history or something. So you have like this more circular causality type perspective to issues. So instead of just trying to fix the depression, you're analyzing and assessing all these other aspects of the person's life to try to figure out like, where is this distress coming from that's creating this depression? Like, this depression is a symptom of some type of issue that this person is experiencing. And so I noticed that that's what this program has really helped train me to do, to really get to the heart of issues for clients.
Thank you. All right, so let's go into kind of the specifics of our program. We have a mission here at the University of Florida, South Florida, to really train really good therapists. And so we want our graduates to come out ready and prepared to be clinicians. And we do that through supervision, training, education. Because we're a smaller program, we feel like we have a more hands-on approach to helping our students become great clinicians. Also working from a multiculturally informed approach when you're working with individuals, couples, or families. All right, next slide. All right, so here is the kind of what makes us unique. We know that a lot of you are looking at multiple programs and trying to decide between, even multiple MFT programs, trying to decide between them. So I just wanted to kind of spend a few minutes talking about what makes our program special. And the first thing is that the program is an MFT program. So it is going to be highly specialized. You're going to get a deep kind of layering of classes that allow you to not only just kind of understand family dynamics, but how to apply it. And then you're going to have the clinical components of the class that really drive home the theory and how it actually shows up in people's lives. On top of that, you're going to get supervision from AMFT approved supervisors, which is a real advantage when you're learning how to do relationship therapy. Our program also is set up or designed to have a 14-month field placement training. So you will be placed at an agency or practice in the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area, and you'll be at that same location for 14 months of your program. And so you get not only us as supervisors and education from us, but you also will get supervision from your supervisor in the field. We also are one of 2 master's degrees in the state of Florida that are COAMFTE accredited programs. So COAMFTE is the accrediting body for marriage and family therapy programs. It's kind of the gold standard in the field. So if you see a program that has that accreditation, you kind of know you're going to get a high level of education. And then our clinical faculty, Dr. Kaufman and I are currently the 2. We have another faculty member that will be joining us, which will be our 3rd core faculty member. We all still have clinical practices. We've had experiences working both in agency settings as well as private practice. So we bring that experience and training to the program as well. And then we have a small cohort, right? We're not a large program. Up until this point, we've accepted 8 a year. This year, we'll be accepting 16, more than likely. And so we've stayed small, like I said, so that we could provide that supervision and the training at a level that we feel comfortable making sure everybody gets what they need. Brooke, you're in the program right now. I just wonder if you might share kind of what it's like to be in a smaller cohort, right? And your experience with that.
Yeah, sure. I think that when applying to grad programs, it can be pretty intimidating, right? Because they accept small numbers of students. But one of the things that's so great about that, especially in our program, is that you really do become like a family and you get so close. And I think it just fosters a better learning environment and working relationship between faculty and students. And it's just a really great experience to have close relationships with each person in your program.
Thank you. So our program's also full-time. That might be seen as a negative for some of you, but the advantage of doing a full-time program is that you actually have the opportunity to truly immerse yourself in the program and in the work, to kind of train yourself to be a good therapist. It's really helpful if you are just immersed in it. And all of our courses are in person. All of our core courses are in person, and all of our clinical classes are in person. We do have, I believe, three classes that are online, like research and human growth and development. And then lower costs than comparable private schools and online programs. In fact, in world news, USF just got ranked as the most cost-effective program or university in Florida to get a degree. So we're proud of that as well. Okay, so careers. When you think about kind of where you want to be at the end of your program, I always like to ask people, thinking 5 years down the road, where do you want to end up? And that kind of helps you determine what master's degree you really need to get into. Just so you are aware, there's lots of different career paths that you can go down as you have an MFT license. That list there, we have graduates that are pretty much at all of those different locations. I'll have Riley share just a minute about working at the VA, since that was his first job once he graduated from the program. And he can also speak a little to kind of what a career in private practice might look like.
Yeah, so at the VA, it's an agency, and it's an agency in which there's every doctor you could possibly think of. So there is kind of this very holistic care, because you have psychiatry, then you have individual counselors, psychologists, LMHCs, you have caseworkers, you have, again, every other medical doctor you can think of. So which is really beneficial, because they use kind of a program where you can see everybody. You're looking at a a vet's, chart, and you could see every single note that there is from everything. So it's kind of unique in that sense. And then you kind of basically, it's insurance based with the VA. So you're getting all the veterans that have been either other or honorably discharged, and they have benefits, and they can come, do couples counseling. I strictly did, as an MFT, couples counseling and family counseling. That was like my role at the outpatient clinic. And then in private practice, I do both, I do all three of both individual, couples, and family counseling. I specifically utilize emotionally focused therapy. And so private practice has its pros and cons, I would say, or I should start with agency. So agency, there's, very structured hours. I chose to do very early hours. So from like 6:30, and I would get off at 3. I like to get off early. And then all the benefits that you have, healthcare benefits, TSP, which is basically like a 401k, but for the government. So you have all those benefits. And then private practice, you have a ton of freedom, but there's this entrepreneurial kind of vibe to it where the sky's kind of the limit of what you can do with it. Like whether it's retreats or conferences or, obviously working with couples, families, and individuals. And then there's a lot. There's just so much you can do, and you have flexibility because you kind of create your own schedule for yourself. And you could also choose to do private pay, or you could choose to be paneled with insurance companies. So paneling with insurance companies allows people to use their insurance to come to do counseling with you, or you could be strictly private pay. Right now, I'm just do private pay. I don't do any insurance. So I would say that those are kind of like the main differences that I've experienced.
Great, thank you. All right, so like I was saying, with us being a full-time master's program, each semester you're going to be taking 3 to 5 classes per semester. We try to start the program a little heavier on the course load, and then once you get into your field placement, it drops off to more like 3 classes a semester. As long as you follow the plan of study, which we've mapped out for you, because you're in a cohort, you'll be taking all the same classes with the same group of people. As long as you stick to that, the program is 6 semesters. So 2 years. You'll start in the fall semester and you'll graduate the second summer. Okay. So this is just a little breakdown of how the credit hours fall. So we have 42 core classes, 42 credit hours of full core classes, and then we have 6 credits of electives. So you get to choose 2 electives, and then 12 credits over those 4 semesters of field placement. And so that's how the breakdown is, which equals 60 credits. If you do the ASA certificate, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's an extra 3 credit hours. So you'll end up with 63 credits. All of these courses, by the way, are on Tampa campus. And so you'll, be in person on Tampa campus for those. All right, so there's 2 different degree options here. At the end of your program, you will be licensed, or you will become a registered intern, which is a form of licensure, and that's your MFT license. Everybody in the program will be qualified to do that. The other option is to combine that with the ASA, which is Addiction Substance Abuse Certificate. And if you do that track, you also will be eligible for the MCAP, which is a state certification. To just give you kind of a visual of what the plan of study would look like, you'll take 4 courses your first semester, 4 your second. These 2 semesters are really to prepare you to start field placement, which begins in the first summer. And as you can see, in the first summer, you just have your practicum and then 2 other courses. And then in fall, practicum 2 with 2 additional classes, practicum 3 in the spring with 2 additional courses, and then summer you only have 1 required course. There you can see where we've kind of stuck in elective options, and depending on the elective and what semester it's taken, you'll add that course to your plan of study. Here are the list of approved electives. We offer a medical family therapy and integrated healthcare course, a trauma-informed course, group theories and practice course, and then a working with children in individual and family treatment. And then we also have, these are new, a play therapy course and a expressive arts Centre course, if your focus and interest is working with children. Okay, so the Addictions and Substance Abuse Certificate is a 15 credit certificate. There are 2 courses that overlap with your required courses already. And then you have 2 electives in the program that you will use for your other substance abuse courses. And then that last class will be the extra class you have to pay for above and beyond the 60 credit hours. And so you can still complete the program in the 2 years. If you go to the next slide, Greg, this is the plan of study, and you can see you still graduate in the second summer, and those highlighted green courses are where you would do all of your electives for the certificate. So we've worked to combine those 2 so that it doesn't take any additional time. All right. I'm going to turn over the mic to Dr. Kaufman to take us through field placement.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm sure most of you are pretty excited to talk about this. This is really the clinical aspect, and our degree is clinically focused. We do have some research options for those of you interested in doing research, but I'm going to go through just a few things. I know it's a lot of information, but the cool thing about our program is you're going to start your field experience very quickly. It comes up really quickly. The first years right now are in their first semester, and we're doing field orientation right now, meeting with people getting ready for their summer start. So that's the cool thing. You'll have 2 semesters of school, and in that 3rd semester, that first summer while you're in graduate school, you're going to go into practicum 1. The cool thing also is that we have 4 practicum experiences that are simultaneously. So you'll go prac 1, prac 2, prac 3, prac 4. We have some little breaks where you'll have a little bit of breathing room, depending upon your clinical site, in between semesters, but you will have 14 months of continual supervision and clinical expertise, which we really feel is valuable for your clinical training. Like coming out of school, I'm sure that our graduates and our students now would say that this has been a really good experience for them to be prepared. Just a couple numbers that you want to pay attention to. Being a COAMFTE program and for state licensure for the state of Florida, part of the requirements are your hours. So what we require in our program, over those 14 months, you'll have to acquire a total of 400 client hours. So those are face-to-face hours where you will actually be doing direct client services. All right. So once again, those are broken up over 14 months. Part of our MFT focus, though, is 200 or half of those hours will actually be couple or family hours. So you're going to get a lot of relational work, and some of those could be workshops. So when y'all come to interview, we can talk a little bit more about other ways of you getting hours. And we allow 125 of those relational hours to be group or workshop focused, where per se we'll do like an EFT hold me tight workshop over a course of a weekend where you could get 16 hours of working with couples in a different capacity. Okay. Okay, and this is just kind of, if you look through our USF webpage and our MFT handbook, you'll see we kind of map out our practicum experiences by putting them in just different learning objectives, right? So you can see in Prac 1, we do like your basic counseling skills. We're really focusing in on you getting used to sitting in the room with people, right? There's a lot of anxiety and mixed emotions coming into this whole new field. And as Prac 2, where our second years are now, we're starting to develop a theory of change paper, understanding more of our, not only our systemic interventions, but our theories that we're grounding our work in. And as you move into that practicum 3, you're really using more of your interventions and focusing more on your model of what it is that you're actually liking to work with. And then Prac 4 really is just helping you to focus in and hone in all your skills and getting ready for our capstone project. So there's we kind of titrate your training in a way so that you're learning skills gradually, you're learning theories gradually, and then you're learning like them at a deeper level as you go through our program. And our core clinical classes will help prep you for these simultaneously as you're going through your practicum experiences. All right, and one of the cool things about our program is that we don't have like a national comprehensive exam that we give you for completion of your certificate, for your for your master's degree. But what we do is what we call a capstone project. And this is a culminating experience and project of all your clinical work throughout your time in practicum. Meaning as you're going to pick a couple or family throughout your time through practicum that you're going to work with, where you're going to be taking audio or video tapes of you doing assessments with them and doing interventions, doing enactments and different things that you're recording. And you will map out, you'll have a template, obviously, of how to do this, but you're going to map out all your clinical work. And the cool thing is throughout our core clinical classes, you're actually going to be taping parts of these. And in Practicum 3, you start to kind of put through and you have a rough draft of all the work that you've been doing. And really, this is a cool way for you to finish out your time with us, and you'll do a presentation with the core faculty and showing just all your clinical work, and you'll have a lot of guidance to work through that. And that's really the way that we show that you're prepared, you have a theory that you're working from, and it's just a way to show us all of your work and a culminating experience of showing your expertise in the field. All right, so a couple things to note about your pathway to licensure. So first of all, there's a national exam for licensure through AMFT, but there isn't right now, there's no compact that says if you get a license in Florida, you can go practice in Georgia, North Carolina, and upwards into New York. So our program really is designed to get you licensed in the state of Florida. The good thing about the state of Florida is that it's one of the more difficult licensure processes. Besides, California is kind of on its own, and New York has some implications as well. But our state, our program will line you up to get licensed in this state. And if you get licensed in this state, you may be able to move those as you're navigating the situation. Like we have some past students right now that have actually went to California. One's in Colorado right now. So there's ways of navigating all those provisional license until you get fully licensed. But we just want to make sure that you understand that as of right now, there's no portability of your degree. The good news is with our COAMFTE accreditation, though, is that is the national recognition for programs, meaning that if you were to move to another state and you had to submit paperwork to get your provisional license, typically most states use COAMFTE as their structure to look to see, did you get really good training? And that helps you to get licensed a little bit easier, get your provisional license. And the other thing is also, I know this is a lot of information, but there is a post-independent licensure after graduating. So meaning, after you graduate with your MFT degree in our state, in the state of Florida, you'll have a 2-year post provisional licensure period to become independently licensed, where you'll have a qualified supervisor to oversee your work for a minimum of 2 years, and during that time you will have to achieve 1,500 direct client hours within that time and then pass the national examination. So we just want to let you know that the pathway to independent licensure, it's a gradual process. You'll have 2 years with us going through our program. Then you'll have another 2 years where you'll be a registered marriage and family therapist intern underneath qualified supervision to become independent at that point.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kaufman. So I'll just kind of come back on and talk a little bit more about our student experience and kind of the application process and where you could go to from here. So with the student experience here at USF, We have a couple different organizations, one of which is called iLink, and that's the student organization that kind of is sponsored by our programs over here in our college. And this is a student organization for the students in the program that help connect them to resources and to guest speakers who speak on different topics for the students. We also have a pretty robust student mentorship program. This is where we invite any of the second year cohort students if they would want to mentor the first year cohort students. And Brooke is actually a great student mentor that we have in our program now. So Brooke, would you like to talk a little bit more about the student mentorship?
Yeah, sure. So everyone here that knows me knows that I'm really passionate about our student mentor program that we have going on, that we're starting to build out and become a bigger thing. Like, as I have previously mentioned, one of the really cool things is we have pretty small cohorts, and that each cohort in itself is able to get really close. And so now we're starting to build out that process of getting the two cohorts that are both taking classes at the same time, working on practicum and whatnot, to be close with one another as well, which is really exciting because sometimes it's a lot easier to go to a student or someone you're more comfortable with on a, not so professional level to talk to them about, hey, what can I expect? What was your experience? Can you give me a little insight, rather than going to faculty or staff at the time? So just making that process and application easier for you guys. We want to be close to you, and hopefully you want to be close to us, because one of the best things of having these programs where everyone is close is that this is our network after we graduate and start to go out and venture out on our own and into the real world towards licensure and whatnot. Especially in the mental health field, it's really awesome to have people just to refer to and connect with when you feel like you're in need of some guidance. So the student mentorship program is a really, really exciting thing that I think is something that our program has to brag about at this point.
All right, thank you, Brooke. We also have faculty advising. So each student gets assigned to one of our core faculty for faculty advising, and you'll have this dedicated faculty advisor throughout the entire program. So if you're like, well, will there be someone there to support me? Of course, we'll have someone there to support you along the way. You could always go to your faculty advisor for questions, or if there's just any general questions for the university, I might be able to answer those. And we also try to have like different skill building and professional development events throughout the year. So some of those things could be something like a field placement fair. I know that Dr. Kaufman works with the students to try to get them connected with field placement opportunities. Maybe some other things that might come up are maybe there's a conference or a research training that our students want to go to. And we encourage our students to get involved in the field as much as possible, even while they're still here at the going through their MFT program. So the application process and timeline. So these are kind of like your next steps if you wanted to apply for our program. And with that, you could easily find how to apply for our program on our website, usf.edu/MFT. And then you could go to that admissions tab on that website, and there should be that apply now button, where if you clicked on that, it would take you to the general USF application. And you could create your admissions profile and apply to any of the graduate programs here at USF. Now, there are some things that we're looking for, and I'm going to go over that on the next slide, but I did want to let students know that when you apply for graduate schools here at USF, there is a $30 fee that comes along with the application. So there is that graduate school application fee, and let's talk about some of those things you're going to need in order to apply successfully for the program. So to apply successfully, our application process and timeline, we have a priority deadline, which is January 15th. So that is the priority timeline we would like our students to have their complete applications in by, so that way they could be reviewed and hopefully accepted for our MFT program. So what you're going to need as part of that application, first thing you're going to need is a resume or a curriculum vitae or CV. And there will be different places to upload this in the graduate application portal. You'll also want to include a statement of purpose, also known as a personal statement. This could be a 1 to 2 page document stating your interest in the program, the experiences that you've had that you would believe that would make you a good fit for our program, and maybe just some career aspirations. So this kind of helps us determine, where you want to go. Is this program going to be a good fit for you? And that is another part of our application. We also require 3 letters of recommendation. We hope that at least one would be from a former professor or faculty member that could speak to your learning ability. Now, I get that question a lot. Well, what if I've been out of school for a while and I don't have a former professor I could reach out to? Dr. Henry, do you have a preference for those students in that situation?
Yeah, so we do require 1 letter from a faculty member. So what you'll usually need to do in those situations is take a course in the summer or at some point and get a letter from that faculty that you're taking a course from. And you're welcome to take a course that, if accepted in the program, would also count towards the program, so that you're not just taking a random course.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Henry. Another one that I usually get a lot of questions about, do we require the GRE exam? We do, and we want you to have some GRE general test scores. So we don't require like the specific GRE subject tests, like the psychology one. We just need the general GRE test, which has 3 sections on it, which is the verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and the writing section. With undergraduate transcripts, you need to have an undergraduate transcript with a bachelor's degree conferred upon there. So the minimum that you need is that bachelor's degree. And as far as coursework goes, we want to see a statistics course or equivalent research methods course on there, which will help a little bit later in the future, especially if you're doing research or program evaluation. I usually get the question, does my bachelor's have to be in like a certain field? Although we don't have any restrictions upon the field that your bachelor's degree is in, although we commonly see a lot of students coming in with bachelor's degrees in psychology, sociology, family sciences, social work, those behavioral health care. Those are just a few that we've seen in the past. We have some accountability and background and drug screen forms. So that's just a form that's on our website where it's a waiver just to let us know, like, hey, I understand, that there are certain requirements for this program, and especially because you're going to be going out to clinical settings during practicum. So we want you to have those forms signed out and filled. And then, of course, that application fee, which is $30 for the university. So once you have all those things into your application portal, that's what we're going to be reviewing. And we kind of review everything as a whole. So if you are like, well, maybe my GPA is not as high, or maybe if I take the GRE test, maybe if I didn't do as well as I thought I would have, there are certain other parts that we really look at closely when it comes to admitting students here for the MFT program. So once we take a look at all those applicants who have that priority deadline of January 15th, we'll start selecting some of the applicants to come in for the interview process. So the interview process usually happens in the spring after that January 15th deadline. Some interviews can happen in late January, others can happen in the month of February, but usually we try to make all decisions on our program usually by March or April after the interviews. So just to let you know, it is a pretty quick turnaround process, with January 15th being the deadline and then having your decision about a month or 2 later. So some of the breakdown of our MFT program admissions, we have students representing 20 different undergraduate institutions over the past cohorts that we had at MFT. So if you're not from USF and you went to a different place for your undergrad, we have a lot of students currently that are doing our program that have come from other institutions. But if you are from USF, we'd be happy to see you stay here and attend this great MFT program. So as you can see, there's all the different schools that we've had different students come from over the years, and including our 3 international students. So we've had a couple students who've gotten their undergrad degrees internationally and then have come to do this MFT program. We anticipate to accept 16 students for our next application cycle, which is for fall 2025. And just a reminder, like I said before, January 15th is that priority deadline, and we'll do interviews late January into February, and then decisions by March and April. So it is a pretty quick turnaround. Please try to get your application in before that January 15th deadline. Just another thing I wanted to mention, and then we'll move on to the Q&A. But the other thing that I usually get questions about here at the university is cost. You know, what is the cost of this program? What is the cost per credit hour? So the good news for any of you who are living currently in the state of Florida or have residency in the state of Florida, the in-state cost per credit hour is actually very affordable when compared to other graduate programs. It costs about $431 per credit hour. If you're an out-of-state student or you're looking to come to Florida, it's a little bit higher. It's at that $877 per credit hour. But we find that these rates are a lot less than what you would see if you went to a private university or like an online master's program where it could easily be like $1,000 a credit hour. So we do pride ourselves on that. And what we also want to pride ourselves on is just there's a lot of different ways that you could pay for your graduate school. Not a lot of students know this, but just like your undergrad, you could apply for FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And you could fill that out at the beginning of the year, and it'll qualify you for certain federal loans and grants and scholarships. So please fill that out. You could also take a look at state and national scholarships. If you currently work for an employer who can help match some of your tuition, then employer benefits can take into account helping pay for the MFT program. And then, of course, throughout the university, there are different graduate assistantships, teaching assistantships, and sometimes even part-time like student assistantships where students can work and either offset part of the tuition. Some of them come with full tuition waivers, but again, it just depends on what you find out there and you apply and get accepted for. I'll have Dr. Kaufman speak a little bit more because another thing that we have here at our program are those advanced practicum stipends. So he could speak a little bit more to those as well.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Yeah, one of the cool things that we're doing that I haven't touched on yet is just our clinical application process for our field sites. We've created the second, working with the VA, we have the second biggest national MFT training program. And we have most of our students go through an interview process. And Brooke, I'm going to ask you about that process. And they offer you a stipend, which is really cool. Also, one of our new affiliations is with Elite DNA Behavioral Health. And I talked with their chief growth officer yesterday, and they have about 35 locations now in the state of Florida. And they have put together a new program, a paid internship as well. Also, they have some other cool features like helping to pay back school loans and things like that. So we have some really nice things that are available for those of you that are looking that may not be able to get a GA, but there are some stipends that are available through our clinical internship. So Brooke, would you just speak a little bit maybe to like your interview process with the VA, coming through your field placement process with that and working with them now?
Yeah, so listen, it can be really intimidating for some people to think about starting practicum and going into an internship and working hands-on, and for others it's really exciting. But no matter what end of the spectrum you're on, I think our program and our field placement process is really awesome in the sense that our field placement coordinator, which is Dr. Kaufman, takes care of most of that heavy lifting for us. So it takes the pressure off of what's already, an intimidating thing to start doing. So basically, he helps us find where we are kind of interested in. We have a orientation sort of thing where these different, like the VA and Elite DNA and different other private practices as well come to speak to us. about, why we should work with them and why we should intern with them. And then we get to choose kind of like our top 3 or so, work with Dr. Kaufman one-on-one and figure out what's the best fit for us. And then we can go interview. And so it's really a what's the best fit for us, what's the best fit for them. And there's a lot of help on the end of our faculty and staff getting us to where we need to be.
Okay, I think that leads us into our questions. We've been trying to answer some here on the chat, but I think it's probably good for me to just start going through and hitting some of the more complex questions that are hard to respond to with chat. Let's see. Somebody asked about international students. We have had international students. The big thing with international, if you plan on going back to your country, you want to make sure that the education you receive here is going to meet the requirements there to practice. There is no licensure from the US that's going to transfer to another country. So you just got to make sure that you're matching what your country needs. And we will assist in terms of helping you navigate the process of applying. There is a couple extra things we'll need if you're an international student, like your English equivalency test scores to make sure that your language skills are sufficient. So anyways, just reach out to us separately if you're an international applicant.
I'm just taking a look through some of the ones in the chat. A lot of people are asking about the GRE, like where to get it. Is there a minimum score? And I can answer a little bit more about that. So that GRE general exam is offered through Educational and Testing Services, also known as ETS, and you could visit their website. I know that some people are like, well, I know it's an expensive exam. There are ways for you to show if you need any financial assistance for the GRE, there are ways to apply for that. They don't want that to be like restrictive to anybody who can't afford the full price of the GRE exam. And as far as scores that we're looking for, I always tell students, you want to try to shoot for like around the 50th percentile. So it's not like a pass fail type of exam. It's more of that standardized SAT, ACT type of exam where you'll be given a score and a percentile. So with the general scoring of the GRE currently, a good score that you can look for in that verbal reasoning and quantitative section would be around a score of 150. So I always say like a good score to shoot for is like a 300 with those two combined. Of course, if you're a little bit higher in the verbal, maybe a little bit lower in the math, as long as it kind of equates out to being around a 300, that is a good point to shoot for. And then as far as the writing section, it's scored differently. It's scored on a scale from 1 to 6. So I always tell students, shoot for maybe a 3 or a 4 on that writing section to be a competitive applicant.
The other question that came in was about which models we emphasize in the program. We cover all the main models of family therapy. They'll all be on your licensure exam, and so we make sure you're aware of all the models. Dr. Kaufman and I are both certified EFT therapists and supervisors, so I would say that probably comes out naturally as an emphasis in our program, but we're comfortable supervising lots of different theories. Solution focus is a common one that students gravitate towards as well. Is there extra training that I would need to be a marriage and family therapist with a Christian view? What I would suggest is when you get to the field placement portion of the program, if you select a site that is a Christian faith-based agency or private practice, you'll get the supervision and training that you need to add that component in addition to what you learn in the program.
Yeah, just to echo that, I just
yeah.
wanted to say that we do have multiple sites that would fit the needs of that.
And then there's a lot of questions here on your stats classes. It's just any stat class. There's really no time frame. Maybe there is a 10-year expiration date on those courses, but if you have a specific question about length of time, just send us that in an email. But yeah, any undergrad stats course could be from psychology, could be from any type of degree, as long as it covered basic stats. And all that is to prepare you for your research class, to make sure you have the basics. Let's see. The other thing, if you're not a good test taker, which I know they're not good test takers out there, and you're worried about the GRE, just know that we look at the full applicant. And what I would tell you is, if you know you're weak in one area, then you want to make sure that you really highlight and emphasize the other areas that you're really strong. So for example, if you're low in your GRE scores, then I would make sure you have some field experience that you can point to say, this is kind of what I bring that is unique, is this work I've done or volunteer work I've done in the field. So you just want to look like a well-rounded applicant, even if you have weaknesses and strengths. You just want to make sure you're well-rounded.
So I'm seeing a couple questions in the chat about submitting items such as letters of recommendation or working on your application. So the thing is, when you set up one with the university for graduate schools, you can continue to update it. So even if you started it today and filled everything out that you possibly could, there are ways in there to keep updating it throughout the future. So if you're like, well, should I have everything before I fill out my application? A lot of students fill out the application because there are specific ways where you could send out links to your recommenders and they'll upload it directly. And so some of the things that you might want to have like on hand are like the resume, statement of purpose. I'm trying to think of like the other things, maybe like an unofficial transcript. But if you're still working on like letters of recommendation or anything like that, you'll submit them through the application portal. If you're already here at USF, that it's really easy for us to pull the transcripts. But at most institutions, you should be able to obtain an unofficial transcript for free, and then you could send over your official transcript once they're finalized. And I'm seeing some questions about like volunteering experiences and where to get maybe some experience now before they join the MFT program. Does anybody have any recommendations there?
Yeah, so there's really kind of two options. One is to get hired as like a behavioral tech, where you get to work in a residential treatment center, working with clients but not doing therapy, but still in the field. And then the other good opportunities are through volunteer work. Specifically, the crisis hotline is a great volunteer experience because they do really good training and you get to talk directly to clients in crisis. So that's a good experience for you, but also looks good because we know the type of training they provide. Dr. Kaufman, is there any other ones that come up?
I had a couple thoughts because I see some themes also popping up around this, is that any kind of camps where you're volunteering to work with couples, families, even big brother, big sister networks, things of that sort. We work with Camp Boggy Creek and some local grief camps. Suncoast Kids Network, I think their headquarters is in Lutz, right near the university over there in Tampa. Anywhere where you're getting some type of formal training and you're actually getting to like sit with families and do some of the work. We take all that into consideration. And there's some other things about when we say we're looking for just well-rounded applicants, like your personhood matters to us, like your letter of intent and your interest. Like we run a very specific systemic MFT program, and those of you that are still kind of like figuring that out, your letter makes a difference. Like your heart for working for couples, families, and moving in that direction really matters to us. So those of you that are, say you struggle with, you know, certain testing and things like that, we understand that. So we're looking to see, are you really a good fit for the heart of our program and what we're doing in our community too? But any type of community efforts that you can be involved in, we will make an impact on our decisions.
Yeah. One of the other question was, how do I stand out as an applicant? I think the advice you just heard there from Dr. Kaufman's good. Your letter of intent is really the personal touch on your applicant. Everything else is like data, but your letters of rec from your faculty, pick those well so that those people give us a insight into you, but also your own written letter of intent or personal statement. That's really where you get to bring who you are to the table and why you have a passion for going into this field specifically. So that definitely helps set you apart. And then we do interviews. So we also get to meet you as individuals and get to know you, which also helps it be more personal. But your application has to get you to the interview. So you want a good applicant, a good application as well. All right, I think we've covered, let's see.
So I think there might be a few more questions.
Okay.
One quick question I think we could answer, you know, what does that interview process look like? Is it in person or online?
It's in person and it lasts, I think we do from like 10 to noon or 9 to noon, something like that. It's a couple hours. There's a individual interview with a faculty member, a group interview, and a simple role play component.
All right. Another one I keep seeing on here is like, well, if I apply before January 15th, is there any way they'll hear, you know, sooner rather than later? I could answer that one. And that one is we kind of wait till we see all of our applicants by that January 15th deadline. So if I notice that you're missing anything as part of your application, you'll probably get a message from me saying, hey, you know, you need to upload these items. But we do usually wait until that January 15th deadline before we start moving to those next stages, like the interviews. And Brooke did put a interesting point on there. The interviews can be offered virtually if you're not local. Is that correct, Dr. Henry?
Yeah, if you're international or out of state, then yes, reach out to us. We do usually offer a separate interview for online. Brooke, do you want to speak to just like how intense the program is? Somebody's asking about like working part-time. Riley, you can speak to this as well.
Yeah, sure. I did answer one of those questions. So you should be mindful that it's a full-time commitment to school here. But also one of the great things about our program is that our classes are predominantly only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you should only think about committing 2 full days a week to school, which is leaving some days in the week for you to work. Most of the people that are in our program do have other jobs. A full-time job and full-time school would be a bit of a weight on your shoulders, I would say. Just not impossible, but definitely a lot as you start practicum and whatnot in your 3rd semester. But yeah, I think that it's set up really well, so you can always plan to have that Monday, Wednesday, Friday to work or to do whatever you need to do, schoolwork and personal stuff.
Great. Anything you'd add, Riley?
Yeah, I think it's definitely manageable working part-time. I worked part-time and it worked out well. I mean, I was still able to have a personal life and hang out with friends, family, be going to the gym, etc. And I still was able to, you know, do everything just fine. So I think part-time is manageable. I'm not sure about full-time, might be a little bit tough, because I think they say like on average, it's like what, 1 to 3 hours per class outside of class, like for to give yourself time to do assignments and whatnot. And also depending on, the bigger assignments, you might have to kind of like space that out as well. So, but I think it's definitely, it was manageable for me to work part-time.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Kaufman, there's a question about research experiences that are available. We do offer a thesis option for those who are interested in going on to a PhD program after, but there's other opportunities as well.
Yeah, real quick, I can touch on that. So I was in the research position before I came in the clinical line. So I still have ongoing research right now. And also we're bringing in a tenured faculty in August. And she will have a ongoing research load as well. But one of my passions is actually getting you active out in the field. So like I'm bringing some of the second year students with me to do some presentations at some national conferences. And then I have 2 small research teams right now with some of the students where they're actively helping us like write papers and get publications, learning about stats if they want. I have an advanced statistician that'll help with some of those things. But yeah, so we have opportunities for you to be involved like locally and then bigger nationally with us, things that are going on out in the field.
Great, thank you. All right, we are past time, so we'll be happy to stay on. At least Dr. Kaufman and I will stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any additional questions, or if we missed your question in the chat, feel free to put another question in there, and we'll kind of go at the bottom and make sure that we have addressed everything. But otherwise, good luck on your applications, and let us know if you have any questions.
So it does look like, Dr. Henry, if you can speak to this, they want to know about GRE waivers for students that already have graduate degrees and government employees or veterans. I saw that pop up a couple of times.
Yeah, so we do, you can apply for an exception. You have to submit an email making a request. Really, those are given if you have a graduate degree already, but you will have to submit your transcripts from that graduate degree, and we'll have to review that to make sure it meets the standards in terms of what we're looking for as a graduate student. So yes, send an email after you apply with your request and any kind of data that we need to make that evaluation. How many weeks per semester are the summer? Summers are 10 weeks long, spring is 16, and fall is 16 weeks. So that's kind of how it works. We're on summer C schedule, which is 10 weeks. How do we support?
I keep seeing I'm looking into the Bright Futures question with USF. So I'll respond to those people who are wondering about the Bright Futures as payment for tuition for grad school.
And the GI Bill. I think somebody had a question about that too.
The GI Bill I know a little bit more about because Veteran Services help students with that. And I believe the GI Bill can be used for graduate school opportunities. And I would just say, for those students that connect with the Veteran Services here at USF to use their GI Bill benefits or anything they might have there. But let me look into that Bright Futures question.
Somebody's asking about kind of the resume and what types of jobs would be good. Yeah, I think, any job that shows us that you have worked with people, even if that's as a waiter or retail, at least tells us that you are comfortable working in those settings. But yeah, highlight in your letter of intent any kind of crossover skills that you feel like from your jobs would it help you or apply to your work as a therapist. And if you can make that argument, then it becomes relevant, right? So yeah.
Yes, and for anybody with accommodations or something about that, we're very humanistic. We're here to help. Like we have, once again, our faculty is here to support you. So we've had students with multiple different accommodations over the years, but we're here to support you. So that's one thing you can expect from faculty here is that we're very relational. We're here to support you and make sure that you get the best experience possible.
I guess Brooke and Riley, this question is about how do like 4 classes in the graduate program compare to 4 classes in undergrad? Guess depends on what your undergrad degree's in, but
yeah, I think mine was in psychology. I think in comparison, the only thing that was a big difference for me is in undergrad, the classes were like twice a week. I had each class twice a week for a shorter amount of time. And in this program, it's once a week with, I think, what are our classes?
3
like,
hours.
3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So, which I personally actually enjoy much better. It helps me compartmentalize things. I think the difference with grad school is that usually you're entering a grad program because you're genuinely passionate about whatever you're going to learn. So you tend to enjoy the classes more. That's my own personal experience. I don't know what experience Riley had.
Yeah, I would say maybe pay attention to the credit hour, but also like Dr. Henry mentioned, it kind of, I guess, depends on the degree too. Because if it's like 3 credit hours and like, I don't know, physical ed might not be comparable to like I don't know, like a MFT class. But yeah, the same thing that Brooke was saying, like when you're passionate about learning therapy, like it didn't feel like, at least for me, I didn't feel like I was doing like work. Like it really enjoyed like the classes and like what I was doing. And but yeah, the timing of things, it kind of depends, I would say on average, like again, probably like 2-3 hours per class outside of class, and it fluctuates, depending on what's going on in the class and what assignments are due too. But yeah, you just got to kind of help organize yourself. I had a whiteboard and I just organized like priority of deadlines based off of the class timing. Like if I had a class on Tuesday and it was on a Friday night, I'm going to prioritize assignments that are due on Tuesday and stuff. So you kind of figure it out as you go with like little things that you might do to help with the intensity of the classes.
Yeah, and I would say a good rule of thumb is 5 undergrad classes would be equivalent to 4 graduate classes in our program. So it's going to be a little heavier than what 4 undergrad classes would be.
I would also agree that I liked the 3-hour class better than the like 50-minute classes. I don't know. I just liked it a lot better.
Great. Perfect. Yes, there are papers